Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the Royal Enfield Himalayan. This is a bike I've wanted to view for a long time, and it is a bike that I would even consider buying because it does everything that I love about motorcycling all in one tiny bike. So, and I say tiny bike, tiny displacement for some people, but actually not that small. So in this video, we're gonna do a complete walkthrough review of this bike. We're gonna show you things the other videos aren't showing you, but there's a catch with this one. I'm in sort of a test phase here. This is my very first video filming at Rally Motoplex, which is in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, and they're giving me, hopefully, complete access to their entire product lineup. But this is my test video for them. So it would be really nice if you guys could help this video do well. How do you do that? You can like it, you can subscribe to the channel. Obviously, leave a comment telling Rally Motoplex that I do a great job and let them know that you want to see more of their stuff. And the best thing you can do is just watch to the end. If you watch to the end, that helps this video spread, makes a big difference to me. But again, I want to get this dealership on our channel because it almost fully completes the entire product lineup that I can work with. So they sell Royal Enfield, CF Moto, Yamaha, Suzuki, Ducati. Oh man, there's so much more. They have Zero electric motorcycles. I'm gonna forget them. Triumph, BMW, and so much more. And that's just motorcycles. So Indian motorcycles. There's just, I could go on and on and on. I need this dealership for you guys. So again, let's get this video going. Let's start with this Royal Enfield. And of course, we got to put this in a class. So let's do that right now. So putting this bike in a class is kind of interesting because a lot of people forget that Royal Enfield is actually the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world. So where we put it in the class of what the Hondas and the Kawasaki's and the Yamahas do, these guys kind of set their own class. So this is an adventure bike, but it's very different than a lot of adventure bikes. First of all, it hasn't got adventure bike styling to some people. A modern adventure bike looks a lot like a Yamaha Tenere 700, but this one doesn't look like that. The CF Moto has a competitor with this, which again, we would be able to film here at Rally once they give us full access. But that CF Moto has that Tenere style styling. This looks more like a retro bike, which is really what Royal Enfield does well. But what's different about Royal Enfield's retro bikes, especially when you look at this Himalayan, is this has a lot of modern stuff going on, but this one's also an economical single cylinder adventure bike. So that just the whole process is completely different. It's not a huge overweight adventure bike. It gets great fuel efficiency. It has a retro look, but some of that retro look is all about practicality, which we're going to touch on in this video. And the dash is one of the cleanest retro looking dashes with modern technology out there, period, on any price of motorcycle. And it's all in a motorcycle that is extremely affordable. There's a lot to like about this, and like I said, I am seriously considering trying to get one of these myself so I can film it on the channel. But let's do what we do with every single video when I start a review. Let's start with the front wheel. So if you've seen my videos before, you know I love to start with the front wheel, and I do that for a reason, because the front wheel tells you the manufacturer's intent for the motorcycle. And it's not just the front wheel, it's the front wheel and the entire process here. So let's look at what we've got. First of all, a spoked wheel 21 inches, full 21 inches, which means they're going full on adventure bike style, right? You can put all kinds of tires on this. The rear tire is a 17, not an 18, so it's a lot like the Kawasaki KLR sizing. It does limit your tire choices a little bit, but let's be honest, any tire you're going to want for this bike, you're going to be able to find for this bike. So 21 inches spoked wheels. Is it tubeless or is it tubed? Well, you have the choice. Some people do like tubed, a lot of people like tubeless. You have the choice of tubed or tubeless when you buy this bike, but the tubed bike or the tubeless bikes only have two color choices. The tubeless bikes have all the color choices. So it's something worth keeping in mind what you want to do there. But you can start it right from the shop. You can get it with tubed or tubeless tires depending on what you want. That's a really nice feature for adventure riders. This is really well done as adventure ride up when you look at it. Upside down forks here with a full coverage here, and this full coverage goes into a lower fender. Now you'll notice that a number of reviews on this bike talk about, hey, one review, the launch, they launched it with a lot of mud, and some mud got stuck in here. This fender is not removable, has to actually be cut from this area to remove it. For some people, that's just a hard no-go. But I think for most people who are gonna ride this bike, you're not necessarily going to go down the muddiest, craziest trails. This is not a dual sport bike. This is an adventure bike. For me, I see this bike as a road-going bike that can go down absolutely any road, including dirt roads and other stuff, and it's extremely capable on the trails. And the reason it's extremely capable on the trails is for an inexpensive bike, they put fantastic shocks on here. Now, you always hear me saying I really like adjustable suspension. A lot of time in the adventure bike market, if you get adjustable suspension, that right away steps it up from base level adjustability. This one's not adjustable, but it's spec'd really well. It's not undersprung, it's not too soft, so it can handle real off-road adventures, and that's why a lot of people have taken this further off-road than you and I would, or the average buyer would probably do it. Reviewers see this and they say, hey, it rides so well, let's take it further and further off-road. But I think this is made for kind of that mixed-use adventure bike, straight down the mainstream adventure bike market. So you also have larger than you would expect disc brakes here, which work very well. And they are done by Bibre, which is the Brembo subsidiary, kind of does the lesser expensive bikes. So the Brembo-like and Brembo, you know, bloodlines in the brakes there, and larger than you would expect on the front with ABS. And when you have a switchable ABS like this one does, it allows you to switch the rear ABS off from the menu and change the front ABS to an off-road setting. So a lot of options here right on the, when you look at this. Now, this tire, some people are going to say is a little bit more road going. Adventure bikes are really a personal thing with tires. I think this tire would work really well for my use, which again is a lot of on-road to get to any dirt road, to go down any rough road, and maybe head down some trail. If you're planning on doing like a BDR or something like where you're going to go fully off-road, yeah, you can upgrade this tire and do what you want. But for starters, really good package here to do just about everything you would want. There is an upper fender here as well, so just, you know, if you ever want to take this fender off, you still have the upper fender. But I think for me, upper one to get some styling and dirt bike protection. The front wheel here really tells you what Royal Enfield's trying to do. So next we have to look at the engine here, the heart of this bike. And the heart of this bike is not what you would expect in an adventure bike. It is a single cylinder 452cc bike. This is a small displacement adventure bike. It's what a lot of people have been asking for and what manufacturers have been hesitant to introduce until this year. We're going to start to see a lot more smaller adventure bikes that are really good quality. So this one is up from the 411, right? The 411 that Royal Enfield used to make on their old Himalayan is a completely different bike. So if you're searching for it online, the 411 made about 25 horsepower. This makes about 40 horsepower. That's in line with the 650, exactly 200cc more, Kawasaki KLR. And a lot of people are going to compare this bike to a KLR, and I think it's a fair comparison, but I do think this one's going to outclass that bike in several ways. While it does have less CCs and it has a little bit less torque, it does have the same horsepower, and a lot of people are telling us that this bike rides really well, really smoothly. So part of that is due to the rubber on the padding, on the foot pegs there. You can kind of see it here. We'll zoom into that in just a second. But part of it is because this seems to be a really well-designed engine. It gives you that low tractor-like feel down low, but it also seems to just not have any trouble running at higher speeds. It's definitely going to go all the highway speeds, and people have driven this highway speeds all day, all over the place. So it seems like it's going to be a fairly reliable, fairly durable engine, and it gives you the speed range and characteristics that you would want on an adventure bike. One of the downfalls of a lot of adventure bikes is that the seat is too high. Well, that's not the case here, but when the seat's not too high, you talk about ground clearance. Well, this one has, I think, around 8 or even 9 inches of ground clearance. I'll have to double check that, maybe put it on the screen for you. But it has all kinds of ground clearance. So does that mean it's going to be cramped? Well, let's find out. I'm about 6 feet tall here, so you can see you pull it up off the side stand. We're going to talk about the side stand in just a second. There's some controversy on that. But for me, at 6 feet tall, some people would say this is cramped. I come from a street bike, a little bit more of a sporty street bike, and what you have is a very, very comfortable riding position. But it's, you know, we'll show you a little bit more of that in a second here. So overall, you've got a fairly wide handlebar, which is kind of what you want for control. A couple little things worth noting is this has a very, very sharp turning circle. So you really have the ability to maneuver this bike. And although it doesn't feel like it's bottom heavy when it's sitting on the side stand, for instance, like a sport bike, it certainly doesn't have the top heaviness like a lot of adventure bikes. It's a very approachable adventure bike. So we talked about the side stand. Let's show you the side stand for a second, or show you what happens with the side stand and the controversy with it. A lot of people think that the side stand comes over too far, and it does go over a long ways for you know, compared to other bikes. However, standard on this bike is a center stand, and I've never put it on the center stand, so let's just try to do that right here, right now. Get it up on the center stand, wheel straight, easily push it up like that. Try and do it nice and slow and gentle for us, and then it can show you couple other benefits with the seating position here. As I'm sitting on this, you can see one of the reasons they designed this seating position like this is so you can stand and you're in a good standing control position. It's very narrow between your legs, which is what you want, but you're very comfortable while you're seating. So you have a standard center stand. If you don't like the side stand that leans over a little bit farther, which is not something unique to this adventure bike. Lots of adventure bikes have a side stand that kind of leans a little bit. But riding position, very comfortable, very in command. Now, we could talk about wind protection and other things. You can get hand guards for this to keep your hands warmer and protected. I say warmer because I'm thinking of heated grips. I haven't checked the heated grips, but a lot of people want hand guards, so you have protection, you can get that. If you want more wind protection here, you can get a taller windshield that seems to work fairly well. It still allows some wind to your face, but it seems to limit the buffeting from what I'm understanding. And of course, I'm going to try to get out on this bike and hopefully, maybe, even consider purchasing it in the future. So mirrors are good, not huge, but they're well placed, so they seep well past my shoulders. And of course, there's other types of mirrors you can buy from Royal Enfield. Lots of accessories on this bike. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So taking a look at the seat here, I didn't talk a whole lot about it, but it is wide and it is a firm seat, but it feels to me like it's the firm kind of seat that's going to be comfortable long term. Now, there's a couple things about the seat that you may not see. You may see that there's this little notch up here. The seat on this bike has a little bar underneath there and a bar underneath there that allows you to have it set at a higher position or a lower position. You can also get a low seat on this bike and a comfort seat. So you have options in the accessories package, but even right from the factory, you can sort of have a raised or lowered position. And of course, it's separate from the rear seat. So you have its separate area there. A couple things I really like. I love adventure bikes, or any bike really, that has some sort of standard rack on the back. So this is a fairly inexpensive bike to buy. And when you're buying it, you have this plain rack that comes with. There's no accessories on here. Now you can mount a number of accessories for hard boxes on top here, hard cases on the side. All of that can be added, and quite inexpensively compared to some of the aftermarket. It's almost better to go with the Royal Enfield branded accessories than it is to go with aftermarket, because you can get them at a really good price and they seem to be very good quality as well. But even if you didn't go that route, you want to see on an adventure bike relatively level rear seat and rear rack, and that allows you to take just your regular duffel bag, strap it on down, take what you want, go camping, do your adventure, do your that kind of thing, and you can do that right from the start. But I will say the adventures you can have on this when you start going through the accessories really add up, and this is a very good platform to start with that. Let's take a look at the dash to show you that, and then we'll show you a couple other things before we close out and talk about who this bike is really for. All right, so taking a look at the dash here, this is the circular gauge cluster that you have on this Royal Enfield Himalayan, and I really like it because it gives that retro feel until you turn it on, and then you see something that is really good. Now, a lot of GoPros, when they're filming while riding, show this dash blinking and that kind of thing. It's just the frame rate of the camera interacting with this screen. You may see a gentle flickering the way I'm filming here today, but again, it's not terrible. One thing I will say is I'm turning the handlebars here. You can see the dash is mounted on the fairing, so it is sort of steady there. You can, it just is where it is. It stays with the bike. Now, a lot to like here. There are some controls down here. First of all, the overall clarity, just looking what you're looking at. You've got the time, you've got the temperature, you've got your speed, of course, in kilometers. We've got odometer up there. You've got your warning lights down there. And of course, the tachometer looks like a traditional tachometer. A lot of these digital displays try to show something really kind of weird and unfamiliar. Fuel gauge is also listed in there. It's all very simple. There are some things that this dash can do, like for instance, connecting to an app. If it connects to an app, it can show you a lot of your information sort of below this line. We'll show that in another video when we get time to go through just the dash on this. But it also gives you connection to your cell phone. Now, it's a little clunky on your cell phone because it allows you to put your Google Maps and that to your dash, which is fantastic, but you still have to essentially run it through your phone, keep your phone plugged in. Now, I can show you in a second that that's entirely possible. But again, I'd love to have it just as a full Garmin nav built into there. Hey, can't have everything, but for an inexpensive bike to be able to have navigation right there on your dash, really impressive. So now again, we're going to show you a couple little things here. We've got a little joystick control here. We're going to sort of play with that, and you can bring up your trip odometer there. So trip odometer is down there. You've got trip 1, you've got trip 2, and in that trip odometer you have both the distance and the fuel efficiency in kilometers per liter there. I believe you can switch that to liters per 100 kilometers and all sorts of other stuff, but we'll play with that in a future video. Hopefully we'll have a future video. Fuel range here, showing Route 264. Again, don't look at fuel range in a showroom because bikes idle, they don't have enough miles on them to really give you accurate stuff. But it is interesting that it shows you the range while the bike is parked, which most bikes don't do until you're driving. Fuel consumption, again, it's in kilometers per liter. I think you can change that to liters per 100 kilometers. And you got your battery voltage there. And you've got your engine temperature there. Another thing about the battery voltage, you can see, right? 10.5 volts to 14.5 volts is sort of the range, so it shows you where you're at. We're right in the middle of that, so that's fine for now. Engine temperature, same thing. It's giving you a bar graph, and that's another nice thing to have on a single-cylinder bike that you may be running hard on the highway. You get a sense of what's going on with that. Really nice to have. Rather than an air-cooled, hope for the best engine, you've got some monitoring here. So really nice dash here. The one thing that people are complaining about is if you set it to, for instance, fuel range, every time you turn the key off and turn the key back on again, you get this nice little display, but it does not leave it in what you had it in. It does not bring it down to your fuel range. You're at trip 1 again. Little minor complaint, software update could fix that, but it is worth mentioning there. Down here, there's a number of settings you can get into that you can change the appearance, the background, all kinds of things, the brightness, the screen type. So there's lots of things to go to change in there. So don't think that there's not more that can be shown on the screen. There's absolutely more, but let's move on to the controls for this video. So every motorcycle manufacturer likes to do controls a little bit differently. For instance, Honda and Kawasaki have a signal and a horn that's in a different spot. Royal Enfield, again, does something different. Where my finger is here is a push button. I wouldn't call it a trigger like on some motorcycles that flash to pass for the high beams. As a trigger, it's a push button. It does give you sort of like a home button for the screen to get home or to reach the home screen on that area. And then you have this, which is a button for your headlights. Now you have a flash to pass like this, so you can just sort of get attention through that LED headlight, or you can turn it high beam or low beam like that. Very easy to control, fairly light to control, simple. Signal light, same thing. They work very well, they're well placed, a little clicky, like no problem, you know what you're doing. And then down here is your horn. Inside of that is this multi-position joystick. Some people have complained that it feels really lightweight, and I guess it might with gloves on, but it doesn't feel like breakable or not sturdy. It feels fine to me. It doesn't feel like it's going to break. It's just a little nudge is all it takes to move that one, whereas the signal lights take a little bit more force, so I think people are confused, but I think that's okay. Like I said, it's hard to reach by accident, so you're not changing your dash by accident. Everything that you need is easily within reach. And again, this keeps things simple. I want to show you one thing on the far side as well. So over here on the throttle side, let's just zoom fully out so you can sort of see where we are. We're going to come right back in. When we're on the throttle side here, nice throttle feel there. You've got this M button down here. Now that is rider modes. There's an eco mode and a performance mode. You're almost never going to use eco mode in this because it's not a high performance engine anyways. 40 horsepower is not a ton, but the eco mode has 2 settings, and so does the performance mode, and that can change your ABS setting. Basically ABS on the off-road setting or ABS on the on-road setting. Really nice to have that setting in here. You're just going to tap it with your thumb and be able to switch through those, so really easy to get to. The other thing is over here is a similar style button. Again, not a trigger but a button, but that is your hazard flashing lights, so your hazard warning lights. It's really nice to have hazard warning lights on any adventure bike, especially an entry-level one, simply because as you're exploring places, you may want to stop and check it out, and you've got hazard lights, and then a kill switch, a little different than some other bikes, but again, Royal Enfield has a simple switch that does exactly what it needs to. So start switch there, you hold it, and kill switch right there. Simple stuff, but works well. So before we close up and talk about who this bike is for, I'm going to pull you in closer and talk about some of the accessories you can get for this bike and talk about the overall design. We started off the bat by saying this doesn't really look like a typical adventure bike. It has these crash bars up top, but you don't have the fairing and that kind of thing. But this bike is one of those super practical bikes, and it's the kind of bike you have to look through the accessories to really equip it the way you want. Now, a lot of people say, I don't want to have to pay for the accessories, I just want the bike. And that's fine, but this bike is so much less expensive than other types of bikes and so good at what it does. Again, great suspension for this price, that you have to start considering the accessories, because what this bike can become for you is more than just what this bike is. So let's start by zooming in here, talking about some accessories that I would add to this bike that can really make it a pretty cool adventure bike. So taking a look at these crash bars on the front, you've got something that I really like. Again, these crash bars aren't just to protect the tank, but of course they will do that if the bike drops, but you also have all of these little attachment points here. And what that means is you could probably find something in your garage right now that you could attach to here, whether it's a water bottle holder, whether it's a small bag, or you can go through accessories that will attach there. So again, it's just a really logical spot to put a little bit of extra stuff. And because you've got such great suspension, you're not worrying about it. You can handle a little bit of weight. So like something like a water bottle, something like a side bag on there, absolutely this is ready to go. So you have options to put a bag there. Again, this shows why they went with a different styling, because this just works and gives you practicality. Now let's move back and talk about some of the practicality you can have back there. So we talked earlier about how I would equip this with a potential top box or with side bags. Now you can do a soft bag up here or hard bags on the side. If you just go with soft bags, you've got lots of attachment points as is. If you want to get the hard bags, you're going to have a frame mounted down here. And the nice thing with a bike like this is you're not ruining the styling by adding some extra tubes down here. It kind of connects the front and the rear, right? So it just actually makes it look more complete. So if you ride without your hard saddlebags and you have the rectangular tubular racks down here, it looks like it fits, like it just works. So again, I would go top box and side box and then still have room here for a passenger if you want, or you could put another soft bag there. Why go soft bags and hard bags? Well, I like hard bags because they lock. You can do a real adventure, stop anywhere, and you've got lockable stuff. If you want to do only off-road adventures, soft bags might be the best way to go, especially if you're going to be dropping the bike, because then you're not cracking and breaking your luggage. But soft bags are also available. So you've got lots of options to make this what you want, even within just the Royal Enfield's, purvey there, just within their own accessories. So let's talk about who this bike is for. Well, first of all, for the price point and the CCs, right? The engine size. Is this a beginner bike? Yes, it could be. I don't know if it's the best beginner bike simply because it's a little bit heavier compared to some beginner bikes. Now, why does everybody call this light? Because for an adventure bike, it's quite light. Compared to the Kawasaki KLR, this bike is about 20 or 30 pounds lighter. So it's not like it's a super, super light bike because they overbuild some sections to give you that strength, but it is a bike that is light enough for most people to handle. Now, what you get from the factory is a lot. Again, you have these crash bars, you have the windshield, you have the digital dash with the connectivity to your phone. I would add crash bars down lower just to protect some of the lower engine and other stuff if you're going to do a ton of off-road. I would add the hard bags, but again, as equipped, you've got everything you need to go do a tour as is. And the biggest thing that people aren't going to realize is you really get fantastic suspension. Suspension makes all the difference on an adventure bike. You've got almost 8 inches out front, just over 7 inches out back of suspension travel. So you've got really good travel to go along with really good suspension quality. You're not bottoming it out. It's not too soft. If you're loading up with luggage and you're a heavier guy or heavier than me, you're still fine riding this bike, even off-road, even abusing it off-road. So then it comes down to reliability. Is Royal Enfield a brand you can trust? Well, like I said, they make more motorcycles than anybody else, and they specialize in this, the smaller displacement type thing. They've made this with longer service intervals than their other stuff. Everybody who's riding this is saying, wow, the smoothness and the performance that this thing pulls off is incredible. I believe you can even fill it with regular fuel, although don't take my word for it. I've heard people say that. I haven't confirmed that through Royal Enfield yet, but you've got a whole bunch of stuff here. So who is it really for? I think this is for someone who wants to go on a true adventure and be able to go down any road. It's as equipped from the factory with the tires that are on it, it's going to be perfectly fine as a road bike. And it's going to take you with the suspension down any dirt road, rough road, poor maintained country road, or even light trail that you want. If you want to upgrade the tires, you can go way, way further because you've got the suspension and ground clearance to do stuff. It does have a skid plate down low. It's more to protect stones and stuff from hitting the engine on a gravel road. You could upgrade that if you're going to crash into rocks and logs, but you've got the base platform to do a lot. And what about speed? A lot of people think a single cylinder doesn't have enough speed. Well, I think the reality is this one has as much or more speed than adventure bikes that are even bigger. KLR, I'm looking at you. It's going to keep up with a bike like that, and it performs really well off-road. So who is this for? Anybody who wants something that may not look traditional, that may sip fuel. And that's the one thing with this. This thing absolutely sips fuel, so you have a lot of range out of this 17-liter tank. And it allows you to go anywhere, do anything, which to me is what motorcycling is all about. It gives you the freedom to take it down a country road. Is it the sportiest on a country road? No, it's not. But again, you're buying a 450cc bike. You kind of know you're not buying top-level performance for on the road. What it does give you is the ability to go absolutely anywhere, all day, overnight, over and over and over again, with a simple bike that won't cost you a lot of insurance, it won't cost you a lot of gas, and it doesn't cost you a lot to buy. And if you want to accessorize it up to turn it into a full touring bike, you can do it. If you want to make it more of a dirt bike, you can do that too. Super, super versatile. So that is my review of the Royal Enfield. A little longer than normal. Hopefully it's not a problem. We'll hopefully this will help. Again, I'm filming here at Rally Motorplex, 2 locations in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, out here in the Maritimes. There are bikes and boats and ATVs and all kinds of things, Polaris, slingshots, and everything you could imagine here. Hopefully, we're gonna have full access to that soon. So do me a favor, guys, help me out on this video, leave a comment, and we'll catch you in the next one.